Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark and revisit a brewery that you've seen me review many things from before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and this brewery are mainly known for their New England hazy IPAs, although I have had a few other styles from them, but it's one of those signature beers that we're going to have a look at today. So for this review, we are going to go to Herlev in the northwest of the city, and we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Gamma Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Zig Zag. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and this one is a Session New England IPA. So yeah, very curious to see how this beer turns out. We got this beer here in Sweden as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget for March of 2021. This is the second beer that I'm having from these guys this month, if I remember rightly. The other one was called the Put Off, if I remember rightly, and that came through the Tilfällig assortment a little bit later. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. Always nice to review different things from Gamma Brewing, and hopefully it's as good as the other beers we've had from them before. This could well be the lowest ABV IPA I've had from them, but that said, I've been having some really nice lower alcohol IPAs in recent times, so I have to say I'm quite curious about how this one turns out, and fingers crossed you guys enjoy the review as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly because I live very close to Denmark and I love my Danish beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So, Gamma Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen, but the company was founded back in 2015 by four friends who were bartenders in various beer bars around the city, and they often just used to talk about how it would be cool to have their own brewery one day. And in the early days, they took in another co-owner, so there's five of them at the brewery. This is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Coy, and Nick, and all of them had a little bit of home brewing experience. And two of them had worked for Ulsnegern in Copenhagen, who actually had purchased the former Stronzo brewery in Gårdløse in the kind of northern part of the city, but this is what became known as Ølkollektivet. So these guys were originally one of the Ølkollektivet breweries, but apparently they were invited to join Ølkollektivet, and they got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started up their brewery without having any experience of running a business, which was quite a gamble, but let's just say it worked out very well for them. But they've expanded quite a few times now, and they were producing around 500 hectolitres at maximum in Ølkollektivet, and one of the co-owners in this brewery is also a co-owner of the Mig og Ulsnegern bar in Aarhus as well. We should point that out. But Ølkollektivet has been home to Ulsnegern, Gamma Brewing, and also Dry and Bitter, and they also brewed the Bad Seed beers under contract for a while, but I believe they've got their own facility out near Aalborg now. And Ghost and Rooster also used to brew some things there as well, but they've since moved on to other places. But in July of 2020, it was announced that they would move to a new brewery in Herlev, and they worked on building this up over the next few months. But in February of 2021, they produced their last beers in Gårdløse before they moved to their new site in Herlev, and the first beers brewed at Herlev were released in March. And as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this particular beer for you, these guys have produced in the region of 120 different beers, and I'm sure there'll be more coming out now that they have a new and larger brewery. If you look at the pictures of this place, it is actually quite impressive, and I do wonder if they're going to open up like a brewery tap room and things like that there as well. It would be quite cool if they opened up a Gamma Brewing Company bar somewhere in Copenhagen. That would definitely be worth checking out. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Gamma Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's all I can tell you. Let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. We'll need to check as well whether this one was brewed in Gorlose or whether this was one of the Herlev beers. But yeah, I know it says here on the side brewed in Gorlose, so this would have been one of the last few batches produced in the Öl Kollektivet factory, if you like. But yeah, as you can see, some very nice artwork on this one, as you always get with Gamma Brewing Company. I always like these kind of modern pattern things that they put on them. You can see on the back of the can there, the Gamma Brewing Company symbol, named of course after the gamma waves, gamma rays, whatever you want to call them. But this beer, to tell you a little bit about its profile, it's hopped with Citra, Simcoe and Hallertau Blanc, although I did see somewhere that this one, there are versions of this that have had cashmere in it, so we'll need to see about that. Cashmere is a very distinctive hop, so I'm sure we'll be able to pick that up if it is in there. And it's got a malt base of Pilsner and Carapils malts with oats and wheat in it as well, and it uses a WLP 66 London fog yeast. So yeah, 440ml can. I think we paid about 50 Swedish kroners for this one, which is roughly about €5. About, you know, maybe £4.25, £4.50, something like that, and somewhere in the region of $5.50, $6 American. So yeah, as I said, as I always say, when it comes to imported beers in Sweden, you will pay about 10 kroners more because the import company has to get a little slice of the fee. But yeah, the craft beer in Sweden is actually generally quite cheap because Systembolaget is run not for profit. But yeah, looks very, very nice. This one, plain top on the can there. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Really curious to see what it has in store for us. I've had some really nice session IPAs over the last few months, particularly from Brewski in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. So I'm curious to see what Gamma have in that particular sub-style bracket. But I tell you something, when you open it up, it does smell pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yes, let me see. There we are. So OCD is happy, the can is in a good place. But yeah, this looks pretty damn nice actually, looking at this. One of the things that I always find with these session IPAs is quite often they do have a good bit of wheat in them, because the wheat gives them a little bit of bitiness, I find. And I think that's a good way to kind of, to sort of just make the beers really nice and drinkable. But you can see when we poured this one, it had a solid finger of quite a bumpy, I would say, perfect white head. But I think that's going to fade away to just be a thin foamy layer quite quickly. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head though, and like I say, the head is quite bumpy. The head is quite bumpy, so I think that's going to fade away pretty quickly. But look at the level of haze on that. That is really damn impressive for a 4.5%er. And the colour as well. The colour, how could we describe the colour of this one? This is like a mixed kind of mango and passion fruit juice, I would say. I think it goes together. It looks really, really nice, to be honest with you. So yeah, I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's just what they remind me of, to be honest with you. But yeah, this one looks as if it's like a mixture. It really looks a bit like a kind of mixture of kind of mango and pineapple juice, or mango and peach juice, or something like that. It's got a lovely colour to it. Remember, when it comes to the colour of your beers, it's dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour. And when it comes to New England IPAs, the level of haze is dependent on the oat content and the wheat content. The yeast can also play a role in there as well. But yeah, the level of haze on that for a 4.5%er is pretty damn impressive, I would say. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. Looks very, very nice. Yeah. Awesome looking beer this. So not much more we can say about the appearance, to be honest. It looks exactly as you would expect from a New England IPA. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. As I say, I'm curious to see whether it's got Simcoe or Cashmere in it. Let's have a look at this. That's interesting. But I'm going to say straight away with this beer, the first thing is it comes across as really sort of bready and a little touch greeny, which is interesting. But there are some really nice juicy fruity notes to it. It's quite a different aroma that you get out of this one compared to the other Gammas that I've had in recent times. Yeah. It's a lovely smelling beer though, I have to say, so thumbs up to them on that. First impression of it is, as I say, it's got a nice soft breadiness to it, and it's just got a little touch of a kind of grainy bread crusty thing, but the fruits are very nice and very juicy in this one. That's kind of what you want from a session IPA. I've said this before in reviews, but I'm a bit unclear what I don't think it's ever been kind of fully defined, if you like, what the difference between a session IPA and a pale ale actually is, because I mean, technically speaking, a pale ale, IPA, double IPA, barley wine, these beers are all related to each other through the hop to malt ratio. But when it comes to a session IPA, I think what they do is they take the malt content down and keep the ratio the same, but obviously if you've got less malt in the beer, it means less alcohol. So yeah, I think that's the main difference between a pale ale and a session IPA, but I couldn't say that for certain. These session IPAs, they always, quite a few of the ones I've had recently, as I said, have turned out very nice. But yeah, let's try and break down the aroma for you a little bit more. So, in the malt base of this one, I would have expected a little bit more wheaty bitiness to it, but this one takes a different approach. It's got a lovely kind of breadiness to it. It actually reminds me a little bit of some Italian bread. I've always felt Italian bread is quite airy and bright, but it just has a wee touch of graininess underneath. The malt base in this one really reminds me of that. You can smell some of the smoother oaty notes in there, but you can also smell that kind of wheaty base. There's a little bit of bread crusty quality as well, like I said. But yeah, the oats, the more that you smell of it, and the deeper you take it in, the oats actually come across as being really smooth and really sweet. So that's an interesting perspective on this one. You do get a tiny little hint of that butter candy Werther's Original type thing out of the beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one I think is lovely. I think it's very, very nicely done. So yeah, beautiful smelling beer, I have to say. So yeah, just lovely kind of bready base to this actually. Like I say, like an Italian white bread, bit of bread crust in there. You can smell a bit of the wheat in there too, some graininess, and just a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy type thing. It's just very minimal, that though. I would stress that this beer really leans towards a very smooth and slightly sweet oaty quality, and I can really appreciate that about it. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the malty side of this beer, to be honest. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things. The green component is very nice and very fresh, I think. You get a little tiny touch of earthiness to it, but the green component for me is overwhelmingly more. It's overwhelmingly more floral and aromatic, and it's quite a light breezy floral aromaticity, and it's got a nice little bit of kind of grassiness to it as well. It's got a little bit of a kind of zesty grassy quality to it, but I think overall it goes together very, very nicely. So yeah, it goes together well. It goes together very, very nicely. The aroma in that, the green component, I think just suits the breadiness nice. It's a very light, just airy smelling beer. On the hoppy side of things though, the fruity side of things, as I said, I was curious about whether there's cashmere in this. To be honest with you, I don't think there is. Because cashmere is a lot more pungent and a lot more distinctive than that. Cashmere always gives you a little bit of melon. And I don't think this one has that. But Hallertau Blanc, of course, is a beautiful, beautiful hop from Germany, about 11% alpha acid, and it gives you, it's actually quite similar to Nelson Sauvin, but it's got more of a kind of German, kind of noble green component to it. No matter how high the alpha acids go in German hops, be it the 8% you get with Mandarina Bavaria or the 11% you get with Hallertau Blanc, you always get this kind of quite bright floral aromaticity and grassiness out of the beers that use these hops, and you can smell that to an extent with this one. The grassiness has a lovely kind of bright noble aspect to it, but the fruits in this beer are very, very soft. I mean, I'm pretty sure this will be one of the versions that's had Simcoe in it, because it's got that lovely soft just tropical note to it. So you can smell a wee touch of a kind of more pungent passion fruit there. That's going to come both from Citra and from Simcoe. Both of those hops, of course, Simcoe are both of them American. Simcoe about 12% alpha acid, Citra about 14. It's going to give you a little bit of a, you've got a really smooth mango-y note in this beer as well. You get lighter things such as apricots and papayas. It's a whole mix of different soft tropical fruits, but that doesn't mean that the Hallertau Blanc doesn't express itself. You really can get a nice, you do get a nice little bit of that, white grapey, green grapey sort of thing, almost gooseberry-like nature, if you like, of the Hallertau Blanc. You just at the tip of the nose you get a little bit more of that kind of oily character for sure. So yeah, the Hallertau Blanc I think is the one that lingers there, but in a bit of a deeper aroma, if you like, that's where you get the softer kind of tropical fruits. Yeah, the aroma coming out of this beer is really, really very nice actually. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, lovely soft tropical notes in there. Like I said, mango seems to be the most prominent one. There's a bit of passion fruit in behind that, but you've got apricots and you've got a little bit of an apricotty and how do you say, a little bit of an apricot and papaya note, but then you've got those kind of white, green, grapey, gooseberry type notes from the Hallertau Blanc. Lovely smelling beer this. Take a bit of time to ponder that over before you get stuck into it. I think it's about time we try this one now though. Really looking forward to this. So this is the Zig Zag, a 4.5% session IPA from Gamma Brewing Company, based in Herlev in the west of Copenhagen now. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh, that is quite different from the other Gamma beers, definitely. But it's nice. It is solid. Yeah. What I would say about this is it's got a nice first impression of this. It's one of the softer session IPAs that I've come across. It's quite different from these ones that I've had from Brewski in recent times. It's quite different from the Brewski ones I've had in recent times because it's just not as bitey, if you like. This one, you know, the Gamma Brewing Company beers have always been, it will vary from beer to beer, of course, but I've always found that the Gamma have really leaned their brewing towards a more kind of creamy, oaty, smooth type New England IPA. And I think it works on the, you know, I think around the 6-7% mark it really works, and it can work well with the double IPAs as well. The session IPAs I think are quite interesting. I don't know, for me, maybe with the session IPA, I like them just to have a little bit of wheaty bite or something, and maybe just a touch more bitterness. Maybe that's just me, because this one, it's very wet, and it's just, you know, very, it feels a little bit wet and a little bit more kind of oily, this one, compared to the other ones that I've had from them before. And of course, when it's a session IPA, it's not going to have the same malt content, of course. That's the other thing you have to remember. So that's probably the reason why it feels a little bit wetter, if you like. You've got less malty particles suspended in this one. So that's an interesting point about this beer. It feels a lot wetter than some of the other ones we've had from Gamma in the past. So yeah, but I do like it. As I say, it's quite solid. It just takes a different approach to the session IPA side of things. If you take a bigger gulp, you do get a little bit more bitiness out of it. So yeah, it's all about how you actually take the beer in as well. That's the thing. Yeah, it's it's really interesting how that goes together. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer then. It's interesting how it progresses, but yeah, it's a nice, very smooth and just easy drinking beer, this one. So yeah, it fits in with what Gamma have done before in that regard. But yeah, straight away across the middle of your palate, you can feel a bit of that pale malty base there, and I think that works really nicely. I think that does work really, really nicely. So you've got that nice kind of pale malty base down there, which is good. I like that forming the backbone of the beer. But if you progress further into flavour, you can feel a little bit of the wheaty and oaty characters just kind of sitting on top of that. So yeah, the way that things go together in this beer is, again, it takes a little while to come out, but it does actually, you know, I was saying that this beer didn't really have a bit of bitiness to it, but that does build in fairness the more that you drink of it. So maybe I've spoken too soon. I don't know. This is one of the benefits, I guess, of doing a slightly longer beer review. But yeah, pale malt blankets the middle third of your palate, as I say. On top of that, you do get a little bit, you can feel the wheatiness kind of coming forward on this one and thickening the beer up, but then kind of down the middle line of your tongue, you've got a nice, smooth, oaty character to it, and in the very centre, you do get a nice kind of sweetness. You do get a little bit of that oaty sweetness pushing its way out of the beer. So yeah, everything goes together really, really nicely on this one. So yeah, it's an interesting beer, this. It's really interesting how it pieces together, definitely. At the centre of your palate, you do get a tiny little bit of that Werther's Original type sweetness, that sort of butter candy thing that you often get in the New England IPAs. That's your alcohol flavour. But yeah, it's very layered and just nice and crisp and drinkable. So yeah, I can really appreciate how this beer goes together. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. The malty side of it is done quite nicely, and it does show a little bit more bitiness, as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of your palate quite well. On that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel it does build up a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty type thing. You do get a wee bit more graininess out of the beer as well. And on the back third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of a sort of wheaty base to the beer. You definitely get a little bit more of that wheaty bitiness there. But on top of that, you can feel those more airy. You can feel the more airy, yeasty kind of parts of the beer coming. That's very soft, airy type bread thing. That kind of builds up, and you can feel that the flavour is just a little bit taller there. So when you start at the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavours like this, and then it just kind of condenses down. And as you reach that border region, it goes down like this, and then you can feel that in the middle third of your palate, it has a nice, it does have a slightly more dense, malty kind of layered flavour in there too. So it goes together. It does go together really nicely. So yeah, I like that. Certainly do like that. Yeah. On the how would we say, on the hoppy side of things then, brain fart there, on the hoppy side of this beer, I think we've covered the malty yeasty side of things as much as we can, but on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, definitely a wee touch of earthiness out of this one. I think that's the Hallertau Blanc that's going to give you that, to be honest, because as I say, the green component that you get in German hops is always very similar. So there's a bit of a soft earthiness there in the back, which I would suspect is coming from Hallertau Blanc. But as you move further forward, it does develop a floral note quite quickly. You can get some of the kind of more bitey American notes in there as well, but you also get, as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, you can get that nice kind of brighter German kind of floral aromaticity out of it as well. You know, at 11% alpha acid, the American hops are higher than the Hallertau Blanc, so 11 for Hallertau Blanc, the 12 and 14 for Simcoe and Citra respectively. But the German hop kind of does hold its own. I mean, around the front curve of the palate, I think the grassiness is distinctly more German, to be honest. It's just got that nice brightness to it, whereas the American one's a bit more kind of zesty almost. It's got a little bit, the American hops tend to be a little bit more kind of zesty and bitey and things, whereas the German one just has a nice brightness, I think you could say. But yeah, the green component of this beer is distinctly more kind of floral, but I think you get that nice little bit of German grassiness out of it on the front tip of the tongue. So I like that about this beer, definitely. But the fruity side of things, as I always say, that front third of your palate is where you get that nice oily bubble, where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. On that front to middle third of your palate, and that border region, you can feel again a bit of a doughy, bready sort of thing building up. There's a bit of a bread crusty quality in there, which I do quite like. And again, at the base of that front third of your palate is a nice kind of smooth. You do get a nice kind of smooth, bready, wheaty kind of thing to it as well. So yeah, I can appreciate how that goes together in this one. I certainly like that about this beer for sure. The base of the fruity note is quite nice, but it's a little bit more punchy in its fruity notes than you would have thought from the aroma too. So let's kind of examine that. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your tongue then, you do get a wee bit of that kind of more punchy, wee bit of that more kind of pungent, passion fruity type note out of the beer. But if you move forward from that, you'll get more of a kind of mango-y note as well. You can feel, so you do get the more pungent passion fruit will be coming from the Citra, but as you move further forward, it mellows out a little bit, and that'll be the Simcoe, and then you start to get the more oily mango, and then further forward from that, as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, it does get a little bit lighter, and you get a few apricot and papaya notes, but then on the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's all about the Hallertau Blanc, that gooseberry, white, green, sort of grapey element out of the beer. So yeah, I really like how all of that pieces together in this one. So yeah, the flavour of this beer, I think, goes together very, very nicely. So yeah, this beer takes a little bit of time to kind of come out of its shell almost. It does develop a little bit more of a bitiness further you go into it, and you do get a wee bit more of a kind of green component as well, which kind of helps that. And for a session IPA, I feel that you need to have a slight bit more, a little bit more bitterness and a little bit more bitiness in the wheaty side of things, especially. And I think this beer gives you that once it opens up a little bit. In the beginning, it's like, yeah, okay, it's just like a kind of wet, hoppy, malty kind of thing, but then yeah, it really opens up a little bit more the more that you drink of it. So I think that's a fairly solid effort from Gamma Brewing Company, and again, it kind of shows you why a slightly longer review can be a good thing. But yeah, this is an interesting beer. It's definitely quite different from the Gamma ones we had before, but that's why I like revisiting breweries quite often. So yeah, interesting beer from them. So this is definitely a brewery you need to check out if you haven't tried them already, for sure. But yeah, let's round off the review with the mouthfeel then. Definitely a mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a very nice kind of wet, slightly oily sort of mouthfeel to it in a sense. It does build a little bit of oiliness the further you go into the aftertaste too, but you do get a fair bit of smoothness and creaminess out of this. The oats, I think this beer does, like most Gamma beers, lean a little bit more towards the oaty side of things. But in terms of hoppy bitterness, I think it's a fairly standard 25-30 IBUs, which for the New England style. And the malt base, like I say, very, very smooth, quite bready leaning, to say, and then you get the oats as well. And then you've got a lovely, just juicy, fruity note to it. It's got a little bit of pungency to it, but I think it's quite a soft, juicy fruit, and then you get just a wee touch of oiliness in there as well. But I think this was a really interesting beer, and I'm glad that I was able to review this one for you here. Something a little bit different from Gamma. So yeah, it kind of shows you the diversity within the different New England IPA sub-styles, if you like. But yeah, I think we can round off the review there. So this one was the Zig Zag, a New England session IPA, hazy session IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in Western Copenhagen. 4.5%. Really nice, easy drinking beer. Takes a little bit of time to come out of its shell though, we can say that. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing Company. We will no doubt return to these guys fairly soon, because we quite often get beers over here in Sweden. I'm often over in Copenhagen as well. But thanks for watching. Check out my social media, check out this brewery, and I'll catch you guys again soon. This one was the Zig Zag Session IPA from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in Copenhagen in Denmark. Slange, skull, cheers. Oh, doesn't want to stop.